On how totalitarian regimes keep citizens silent. One of the most fervently pursued aims of Soviet educational and psychological conditioning is to render the citizen helpless. You put a man in a cell and tell him that there is no escape from it. That is the prototypical situation. Sloth and indifference are powerful ingredients of our nature. It's so much easier not to notice things than to notice them. The first doesn't require you to take action. The second does, and that can be uncomfortable for your conscience and take away from your prime TV time. It is, therefore, tempting to fall in with Sovietization. It appeals to your sense of inertia and your instinct to go for the easy way out. Perhaps the most difficult part of running against Sovietization is the sense of ridicule, to which rejecting it exposes you. You don't become, in average Soviet eyes, an heroic dissident, but a figure of fun. This can be more lethal to your morale than the fear of the KGB or Siberia. Another factor that keeps many people obedient and Sovietized is the pursuit of their talent, real or imagined. How do you exercise your talent in a totalitarian system? Only by going along with the system, because it alone can provide you with a stage, a platform, a publishing house, a microphone. Of course, the devil never asks for too much. You are, in the beginning, asked to make only very small concessions, but those are enough to align you with the system. The system makes for silence. It proffers compliance as the lesser evil. To stand up and say, yes, we have known all about the executioners, the deportations. Yes, we closed our eyes so that we wouldn't feel responsible. This takes an heroic person and an abnormally heightened type of consciousness. And then to be derided to boot for tilting at windmills by the very people whose rights you are trying to protect at great risk to yourself is a little too much even for a courageous man to bear. When a policeman threatens you under investigation, don't be a fool, toe the line. He may very well steal your resistance, but when the same is said to you by ordinary people you have known and liked all your life, your inclination is to give up in disgust. Vladimir Bukovsky in an interview to Encounter magazine, January 1988. There is practically no free human being inside the entire country. The state, the only employer, will not allow anyone to be financially independent, as indeed no independence of any kind will be tolerated. Everybody must be carrying out a useful task, performing a needed function. Several nationwide networks of security and secret police spy first on each other and then together on everybody else. Such a system has created a new type of man who thinks one thing, publicly expresses another, and does a third. Vladimir Bukovsky, The Peace Movement and the Soviet Union, The Orwell Press, London 1982. Back in Soviet times, I thought it was already post-Stalin time, Brezhnev's time, which we used to call vegetarian times. Well, what if the people refused to at least participate in those May Day parades or in those socialist competitions? That would be a small step. They wouldn't have been punished for that. But they didn't. They were afraid, and they are afraid of the most phenomenal things. For example, a person is in line to receive an apartment from the state, and his turn to receive an apartment will come in 5 years. And if he does something untoward, he will be thrown out of this line, and he will then have to wait for another 10 years. That was enough. In Stalin's time, the punishment was the firing squad. In the times of the Civil War, in Stalin's time, they were afraid of execution, and in our time they were afraid to lose their spot in the queue for an apartment. And that was enough to control huge masses of people. Vladimir Bukovsky speaking in Prague, March 2013. No, we are either free or we are not. It is an inequality that cannot be measured. What I wanted to highlight is that within this very measure it demands attention or a choice, irrespective of external conditions, and our tendency is to trade it, at least partially, for a more peaceful life. This leads to voluntary slavery and to this rigid form that is socialism as we know it in the USSR, which takes charge of this desire for peacefulness and walls you in at the same time. That's what explains this society better than any ideology, and since this exchange of freedom against comfort has reached its peak point in the USSR, a person realizes that the measurement is complete and wants to pull himself together. Thus, he makes a concrete choice, which often means prison, but which allows him to feel that he has attained his freedom. Vladimir Bukovsky in an interview to La Quinzaine Littéraire magazine, September 1, 1981. If different political theories are inductively generated in the West as a generalization of existing experience, in the Soviet Union it is the other way round. There is a doctrine, and in accordance with this doctrine, facts of life are created. If any fact of life does not correspond to the existing theory, it is simply destroyed. According to the official doctrine, consciousness is shaped by being. According to this doctrine, socialism has been built in the Soviet Union, and the society there is supposedly in the process of building communism. So the people who live in the socialist and communist society, cannot have any other consciousness other than socialist consciousness. And really, where are those who believe in God in the Soviet Union when anti-religious propaganda has been flourishing for 60 years and religious propaganda is forbidden? Where are the opponents of communism when all aspects of life are organized according to the principles of communism? According to the official doctrine, there are two explanations of this phenomenon. According to this doctrine, thinking differently can either be the result of being bribed by Western imperialism, and then the dissenters are paid agents of imperialism. And the other explanation is that dissent is a pathological process. There is no other logical explanation according to the prevailing doctrine. If for any reason it is not advisable to put a dissident in the first category as an agent of imperialism, he automatically falls into the second category as a mentally ill person. The psychiatrists have no choice but to make the diagnosis which best suits the psychological makeup of the person concerned. If the patient is a stubborn patient, then he is paranoid. If he gives in, he is schizophrenic. Vladimir Bukovsky speaking at a press conference in Frankfurt am Main, January 23, 1977.